This is the Recovery Lab.
Here we dive deep into the struggles, victories, and hope that stem from recovery.
No shame, no judgment, just truth, grace, and inspiration.
Let's walk this road together.
What's up, Recovery Lab Nation? I'm David Sugg.
I'm Brynn Knox.
I'm Daniel Anderson.
We are the Recovery Lab, and we are back this week, episode 139. It's actually 136 part due. Kirk Hartley's come back to tell the rest of the story. There's people that stop me sometimes and say, "Hey, man, I like that last episode," or "Hey, when you going to drop another one?" or "Hey, you should have so and so on." But I've had more people come on like, "When is Kirk going to tell the rest of his story?" And I'm like, okay, what are me and Brynn like chopped liver? Like, nobody's ever really asking us to do more of us.
Right.
We've had a lot of like Kirk to do more Kirk. So
that's hilarious.
So for all you listeners out there, if you're listening to this live, though, it's a sin to be inside on a day like today. Y'all stop, turn this off, and go outside and catch us on the flip because it is so gorgeous out there.
It really is.
Did you just have spring break, Brynn?
Yeah. Well, we had the stomach flu all spring break, so that was really exciting. But Jax ended up going when I had the race out of here last time. It was for his mission trip meeting, and they went to Northern Ireland. And they actually had usually in Ireland it's raining, and they didn't have like any rain that whole week.
Cool.
They were there, and they had a good old time. So
That's awesome.
he's back from that. He had a good time.
Where was he at? Belfast.
They did go to Belfast.
Yeah.
Ireland, man.
Northern Ireland. Yeah. Cool. That must have been cool.
Yeah, I was excited for him.
What's been keeping you busy since we saw you last, Kirk?
Planting plants, playing in the yard, walking a lot, just what I normally do. I'm a gym rat and hitting meetings.
Life's good, isn't it?
Yeah, life is
Good
awesome.
to be sober.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
it's
I
good to be
said,
up
when
there,
we got here, drop dead gorgeous day out there, and grateful to have the opportunity to do this part two and get on with it. I apologize again for as long as I went last time because
Don't.
I was talking about me.
What better thing is there to do? Yeah.
But yeah, I'm glad to be here again.
No, every minute of it was so good. I went back and listened to it just to like refresh and catch up and stuff. I was like, man, we needed to hear every single thing you said.
Yeah.
So
Well, thank you.
it was great. I can't wait for the rest of it because I think there's just so I've just gotten like little bits and pieces of it during your shares and stuff like that. And so I'm excited to hear it all at once.
Well, thank you.
So we left off 2 weeks before the due date, and you started your career at Copac.
Mm-hmm.
You were a sign painter.
I was
at
a
the time.
sign painter at the time and a Kirby vacuum cleaner salesman too. So, but yeah, after I left here, I thought about that and just kind of encapsulating everything because when we were breaking out last time I was here, and again, thank you for letting me be here today. We got God all up in here, so I know everything's going to be okay. But, I thought about that because you mentioned wanting to hear more about my dad. And so back to when Joe and I got pregnant and we got married, but in March of that year of 89, I called Dad and I said, "Hey, Pops, got some good news." He's like, "What's that?" I said, "Well, you're getting a daughter-in-law." And he's like, "Awesome, you and Joe are getting married." I said, "Yes, sir." And I said, "I've got even some better news too." He says, "What's that?" I said, "You're going to be a grandpa again." He's like, "Really?" He goes, "That's awesome." I'm like, "Yeah, cool." And then he got really quiet on the phone. And I said, "Hey, what's up, man?" He's like, "Well, look, I don't want to spoil your good news with bad news, but I found out yesterday I've got cancer." And on the inside, I'm going, Dad always one-upping me, but that hit me like a ton of bricks because it was non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, leukemia. And at that time, it was not as treatable as it is today. It's kind of like you get that, boom, you're good. And he was pretty much a guinea pig, with the treatments that he went through up in Tupelo at the medical center up there. And I spent a lot of time with him during that process. And it was so cool. He asked his doctor, he's like, "Hey, does this have anything to do with smoking?" And they're like, "We can't correlate the two together." And he goes, "All right, well, I'm smoking till the bitter end." And so I'd go outside and sit by the flagpole and smoke a cigarette. And he'd take his oxygen stop and he's like, "Fire me up a butt, boy." So, but in that time, we had some really, really wonderful talks. 3 weeks in, and when I came home from Texas, I went to Tupelo and kind of cleared the air with him and told him, "Hey, I hated you all my life. I love you because you're my dad, but that relationship doesn't exist anymore. You're sober now. I'm sober now, or I'm beginning this journey again, and I want to be your son. And you're not my boss. You're not my overseer. What can we do?" And he was very open-minded to that. And he kind of bucked a little bit. I was always the messenger kid in the family between 5 kids. You tell your brother this, tell your mom that. And I'm like, no, I said, that doesn't happen anymore. So we kind of turned over a new leaf, and it was really cool. I had a younger brother that was about 10 or 11 years old, and watching him go through that. And he went to AA for about 2 years, and then found a group of guys to meet at Waffle House every morning for coffee, and were like-minded and involved in the church. But the cool thing is that this is his silver dollar in Tupelo. In Tupelo, when you got your 1-year chip at the little White House, I believe was the meeting place. When you got your 1-year medallion, you got a silver dollar too. And my stepmom gave me that right after he passed away.
Wow.
And so I treasure that. Whenever I tell my story, I usually have that in my back pocket. So Pops is with me when I do that. And so we were able to clear away the wreckage of the past and start anew. And it was funny because in the talks we had at the hospital, he'd look at me, as I shared before, he called me KT. He's like, "KT, I just can't believe you stuck needles in your arms." And I'm like, "Okay, well, I did. And I drank a lot, and I smoked a lot of dope." I said, "But, touche. I can't believe you slept around on Mom like you did and gambled. I think you gambled 2 of our houses away that we grew up in. So where's the common ground, baby?" But it was just kind of a process of kind of purging all those things that I'd carried with me all my life, and how I despised him. And
What a blessing.
yes. And so I treasure that. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it right now. But for us to be able to do that, no holds barred, and to have that opportunity to do it was a gift from God. And I lost my train of thought. I had something really good to say, and maybe it'll come back around. But he went through his treatments, and then we'll go back into 2 weeks prior to due date. We found out our son Austin had a diaphragmatic hernia, which meant he was going to have surgery at birth. I had a guy up on belay on the ropes course, and a kid on the back porch out at Copac yelled, "Your wife's on the phone. Something's wrong with the baby." And I'm like, I was like, "Hey, dude, you need to get on down here right now." And ran to town, and they explained to us what it was. And diaphragmatic hernia is a hole in the diaphragm, and the bowels and the intestine go up in the lung cavity, and they can pull everything out, zip everything up, and in a perfect world, everything will be fine. Well, the pressure in his lungs cavity was so harsh that it kept his lungs from developing, and that's usually the last thing that develops in the babies.
Yeah.
The babies coming to life. And so, he was born on Joe's 3-year sobriety birthday, November 13th, 1989, and he lived for 40 hours on life support. He came out yelling. He was fired up, 8 pounds, 4 ounces, 19 inches long, and he was raising some cane. And then they got him sedated and got him ready for surgery and whatnot. And so in that time frame of 2 weeks, him coming to town, I am doing a mental gymnastics and prayers and anger at God. And why is this happening? Is this really happening? It was one of those, as I shared before, I always looked at life like I was watching a movie that I wasn't a part of, and I was kind of feeling that way, all over the place. And, we had to make the decision to take him off all the life support, and then we were both holding him when he took his last breath. And so
My stomach just like turns. I just can't
cool
imagine.
the cool thing, I mean, there's so many cool moments about this whole process, but the coolest thing between my father and I was my father had a treatment the day before Austin was born on a Saturday. He had to get it in early. And Sunday night, he called me and said, "Hey, KT, Alice and I are at the Holiday Inn on 55. What time are y'all going to be at the hospital?" Woo! And I don't want to tear up about it, but I got so much gratitude for that because I was like, Dad, gum, my dad's here for me.
Mm.
And I've never had that before.
Mm.
You know, it took me 29 years to get that. Going from that, hey, boy, we don't hug no more, give me, shake my hand, to I love you, I care about you, I want the best for you, I'm proud of you.
Mm-hmm.
But he was there. And so about halfway into to his short-lived life, 20 hours in, he looked at me and he goes, "Buddy, I love you. I got to go. I'm not doing well." And so that was 1989, and he got into remission and had a good year and a half, and it came back and it ate him up quick. So I went through that process again of being at the hospital. My stepmom would call and go, I think it might be time. And because there was just a part of me that wanted to be there when he passed. And I could make it to Tupelo in an hour and 15 minutes. I'm going 100 miles an hour. If the Rangers were going to have to chase me all the way to the hospital because that was my dad. And so, she had a C-section. She was in the hospital for 5 days. And in those 5-day time period, so many people from AA showed up that they had to put a podium at the end of the hall to say whether she was seeing people or not. Two of our good friends, Mike R. and Charlie S., came up there and gave her their 3-year chips to celebrate her sobriety. And everybody signed in at the thing. And so part of that time there too was when I took the split from NA and AA. And I don't say this disparagingly or anything, but I guess maybe just maturity levels and where it was at the time, but nobody from Narcotics Anonymous showed up. And that hurt.
Yeah.
Because I was mega involved in that. And not to toot my own horn, but I was involved in every convention we ever did, any, fundraisers and blah, blah, blah. But it was just like, wow, AA is here. And so on Wednesday of that week, Tom Kay had been up there with us from Jump Street, never left our sides. What a brother. And he said, "Y'all good?" I said, "Yeah, I think we're good." He said, "All right, call me if you need me." He lived way across the reservoir, just back before cell phones and all that stuff. I'm just fit to be tied. My feelings are all over the place. My son's dead. People are showing up. Wow, this is amazing. And then they came in and gave her some kind of shot and threw the syringe in the little box on the wall. And I went over there and pulled a rig out, and they had just wheeled a girl in across the hall, and I heard the nurse say, "Check her morphine pump." So Junkie Kirk said, "I'm walking across the hall and I'm tapping her morphine. Swear to God." I'm like, I'm fixing to get loaded. I do not like the way I feel. This sucks. And I was full of anger and rage and fear, and really, really couldn't put fingers on that right now. I was just discombobulated. And that still small voice said, "Call Tom." I called Tom. Tom said, "Don't do it until I get there." It's like 1:30 in the morning. He's been with me for 48 hours already. Next thing I know, if y'all know Tom, here comes Tom. Boom, 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 down the hallway. And he takes me out in the hall and puts his arm on my shoulder. And he's like, "Look, I'll help you do it if you really want to do this." And he slammed me up against the wall and said, "Or you can get in touch with your feelings you got going. Do you really think your son wants you to get loaded because he died?" And that's all I needed to hear. But it it scared me to the point where I almost did that with my dad before he died. I'll touch on that in a second. But the next day, I was at the noon meeting at Yana downstairs, reading How It Works up at the podium, with tears coming down my eyes, snot bubbles coming out of my nose. Some of the people in there knew what was going on, and the other people were like, "What's up with this dude?" You know. But that was exactly where I was supposed to be. That was my anchoring back to going, okay, this is real. This is happening. You almost took a dive, you know. And so I'm dealing with my emotions. I'm watching my wife deal with her emotions, telling me my arms are aching because I'm supposed to be holding my baby, and I can't relate to that. I can't wrap my head around that. And I'm trying to be as understanding as I possibly can while dealing with my anger and just so we get home, we have a Saturday morning graveside service in South Jackson down there off McClure Road at the cemetery. And we rolled up, and I'm looking out there and I'm like, oh my God. I'm like 10% of the people that were there were my family and her family, and the rest was Alcoholics Anonymous. And wow. And so not only did God do for me what I couldn't do for myself, AA was doing for me what I couldn't do for myself. And they stood me up. They stood Joe up. And so fast forward, Joe wanted a baby really bad. And so 7 months later, I'm running the ropes course still out at Copac, and she's like, meet me at Tommy's Trading Post, and comes down there and lays this thing on the table. I've never seen a pregnancy test thing before. And I'm like, what, did you get some new contacts or something? so and she's like, no, pick it up and look at it. And I pick it up and I look at it again. And then I saw that plus sign. I went, oh my God, you're pregnant. She goes, I am. I was like, crap. And we had another baby on the way. So, albeit I dealt with a pregnant woman for almost 2 years straight, a pregnant woman in recovery for 2 years straight. But so that fall, Dad's leukemia came back, and in and out, in and out, in and out. That's when I was making those mad dashes to Tupelo. And then in the first week of February of 1991, I got the call on a Sunday, boogied up there, still hanging in. And I had a picture of the sonogram from Cameron, our second son. And I showed it to him. They had him so doped up on Ativan and Dilaudid that I had to really rock him to get him to wake up. And I said, hey, here's your grand boy. He grinned. And my dad's name was Lloyd Edmund Hartley. And I said, we figured out what we're going to name him. I want you to know this before you tap out here. And he's like, he's listening. And I said, we're going to name him Cameron Lloyd Hartley. And I said, you okay with that? Big old crocodile tear came out of it. Cool. And
Hartley men don't cry.
no, yes, we do. Hard to make them cry, but we cry. But thank God. So, yeah, that was a Saturday night. I went home to my stepmom said, hey, go home and sleep in our room and not that little bitty guest bed in the bedroom. And I went home and I said, where are the Tylenol? She said, where they always are. And I went, okay, cool. Got home, opened up the cupboard where they were. And not only were the Tylenol in there, but where there was a brand new bottle of Dilaudid K12s. I looked, just filled 2 days ago. I counted them, 100. At the time, they were going for 125 on the street. So junkies coming back into play. I can make 12.5 quick. I knew I could turn them. And I'm like, no, I put them back. And I go in there to brush my teeth, and my dad had a port, and all that stuff. And so all these syringes are laying on the bathroom counter. I went, oh my God, I think I'm going to do me a Dilaudid. That same instant brain fart or whatever you want to call it. But I was
Mhm.
right back where I was in that hospital going, I don't like the way I feel.
Mhm.
My dad's fixing to die, and life sucks right now. And so part of me said, call Tom. God said, hit your knees and pray, boy. And I did. And I cried like a baby. And I left the next day. I knew I wasn't going to see Dad alive again. I kissed him on the forehead and told him I loved him. Had to get back here for work. And he died the next day. And he had a moment of clarity with Alice that was really cool. That they had their moment before he went on. But my stepmom called and said, hey, we've had the arrangements made for a long time. Is there anything I can do before y'all come up here tomorrow? I said, matter of fact, there is. I said, in the cupboard, there's a brand new bottle of narcotics that I need you to make disappear. It's not that I don't know. I don't trust myself. Okay. She goes, done. Thank you for telling me that. I said, awesome. So we get up there, and did I go check? Yes, I did. And, and that's with 4.5 years of sobriety and whatnot,
Mhm.
but it just kept, my brain couldn't turn it off. And so we did our deal, and then Cameron came along April 22nd of 1991, and the rest is history. And so living a life in recovery with a spouse that's in recovery can be a double-edged sword sometimes. In our early marriage, we took each other's inventory nonstop. And of course, she was pregnant in our early marriage for, like I said, almost 2 years, 18 months or however, do the math. And so she could sling it, I could sling it back, sling it. And so finally, I just said, honey, I said, look, we can keep tearing each other down, but if we're gonna keep doing this, we're gonna have to put a nickel in the bag or something. There's gotta be some kind of dues that need to be paid. If we're gonna just keep ripping each other a new ass, just because we don't like how the other one's living. And I'd wear Tom out all the time. I mean, I had a 6-year-old stepson, and he didn't act right, and I'd call Tom, and Tom would go, hey, look, you knew what you were getting into on the front end. He goes, he was part of the package. It's a package deal. Suck it up, buttercup.
Mhm.
It's just part of it. And, you know, he was right. He was right. And even after Cameron came along, I still had a lot of that unfettered anger and rage about what had happened with my son, losing my son. And we didn't smoke in the house. We were both still smoking. I'd smoke outside. And I went outside one night to smoke a cigarette, and I just looked up in the sky, and there was the North Star and then the Big Dipper. And in that moment of clarity, it was like, you ain't that important, man. You are not that important. Let it go or let it eat you alive till the day you die. And that was another one of those, boom, could have had a V8 moments kind of thing going, I've made this so hard. And what do you do? I mean, like any young couple young couple being married, 32, 33, my career was kind of I had done a weekend workshop with some inner city kids that Frank Melton, a program that Brynn probably doesn't know who Frank Melton is. She may. He owned WLBT. You probably know who he is. He was the mayor of Jackson at one time.
I remember him.
A very colorful man.
Mm.
And these are little gang banging, crack slinging little black kids, and I had him out there on our ropes course at Copac, and he goes, "Dude, I don't know what it is." He goes, "I don't know if it's your tone, or you kind of sound like a drill sergeant a little bit." He goes, "But these kids don't listen to me like they listen to you." He goes, "I want you to come to work for me." Like, doing what? He goes, "We'll figure it out." And so at that time at Copac, it was to the point of treatment was kind of hinky in 1991. It was kind of up and down, and a lot of folks have been getting laid off, and I was last hired, next fired kind of thing. And Frank offered me 10 grand more than I was making at Copac. I said, "When do you need me to start?" And so I went and did that down on Ferris Street, Jackson, Mississippi.
Wow.
Token white boy in this Greater Jackson Youth Service Corps is what it was called. It was a federally funded jobs training program that I took these kids out every day and worked them like rented mules, picking up trash, tearing down crack houses. They would dog cuss me, and I'd laugh at them, and then in the afternoons they worked on getting their GEDs. They came to that program wanting to get out of the life. That was kind of where they were at. So it was really, it gave me a different perspective on the gang lifestyle and all that kind of stuff. I'm still not real deep in that, but I could tell when somebody died after they'd come in over the weekend. I could look at a young guy in the eye and go, somebody died this week. And they wouldn't want to talk about it. But what I did with every new group that came in with us, I told my recovery story. And that gave them a whole, they looked at me as the token white guy here in this. They hired this guy because I got to have a white guy here. And that was not the case,
Right.
And they're like, Mr. Kirk, you crazy. I go, I am. I am. Look at where I'm at. Look where I am right now. How crazy am I to be down here with you guys, I said, a marshmallow and a sea of milk duds. I messed with him all the time. And I had that kind of rapport with him. And, in 1993, Stacy Hughes, the executive director and one of the owners at Copac, called me and asked me if we could have lunch. And we met at Kiefer's down by Baptist, the original location. And he talked to me about coming back as I'd done everything out there, coming in as a counselor in training, running an adventure-based therapy program, hammering and nailing and all those things. And he said, look, I want to use you wherever I need you, but I want you to think about maybe getting into marketing our program. He goes, I've got you a plane ticket to Atlanta for the Southeastern, for CCATS, what it called, Southeastern Conference on Addiction Disorders. And here's $500 for your expenses. Tommy Walton will take care of everything in your room and all that. Go over there and take a look at it and see what you think. Hell, I didn't even own a coat and tie. I had to borrow money from my stepmom to buy a coat and tie because I'm barely getting by. I'm painting signs in my garage and working at Copac in the daytime. And so I fly to Atlanta, JW Marriott downtown, and I take the escalator down to the conference hall, and I'm looking around. I see all these exhibit booths and whatnot, and I'm going, I can do this. I've gone from knocking on doors and sweeping floors, selling Kirby vacuum cleaners. I'm like, I think I can pitch Copac, and that's kind of how it all started. And Tom Watson was still alive at that time. He ended up dying of cancer about a year and a half later, but we get together after we get back, and he's like, look, I want you to infiltrate the state of Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, Tennessee, and Alabama. Here's the brochures. Here's the keys of the car. Here's an expense report. You got any questions? I'm like, no. He goes, well, how do you feel about going back to Texas where you left your addiction? I said, I know they got meetings out there. It was more like an adventure and a challenge for me. And that was kind of how my career started, leaving every Sunday night, driving west, east, north, wherever, leaving my kids, leaving Joanne with the kids. And, we had a good life. Copac was real good to me, and I was good to Copac. It was a good relationship until it wasn't anymore. 2012. But in that time,
That's a long time.
22 years total service. I loved it because I eventually worked my way out of an office out there, and we ended up started working from home. But I had an office out there that I'd go out there and report to and do my reports in and whatnot. But I love going out on the unit and saying, hey, Johnny, where are you from? They go, I'm from Houston. I go, Dr. Glass send you? Yeah, how do you know that? I said, well, I saw George last week when I was in Houston. No, you didn't. I said, yeah. Well, I don't like this place. I said, give it a couple of days. You'll be all right.
Yeah.
You'll be okay. But I loved interacting with the guys. Because at one time, Copac was known for our long-term extended residential care program. And you had to do 30 days of primary somewhere before you ever were even referred to come to Copac for further care. And so we got a lot of people out of South Miami and well, from all over. And it was funny that the ones that would come in and are like, "Man, I'm so glad to be here." It'd be like July, you know, and those are the ones that we said were, you know, some of the sicker than the sickest ones. You know, happy to be in treatment. You know, we're
Yeah.
like you like carving pumpkins? They're like, "What do you mean? Because you might be here till Halloween." You know? You like turkey? You know, so. But it was more 12-step based at that time. You know, at that time we treated chemical dependency, and then we started dabbling in the dual diagnosis, and then we started treating sexual, and then we started treating eating disorders, then we started treating gambling, which was cool because I ended up getting my mom treated there for her gambling, and kind of to talk about that with my mom. My good old rageaholic mom. I think that's, you know, that's the vein I got my anger and rage from. But which was it took me a very, very long time to finally process and let that go. I'll talk about that. But mom had a way of manipulating all us kids, all 5 of us. You know, she unbeknownst to none of us, you know, that, you know, she lived on Social Security. She lived where she wanted to live. She called it Widow Watkins Weed Patch. It was a little old shanty on 5 acres outside in Hillsboro, Mississippi, outside Forest. I'd go over and cut her grass and keep the house tidy during the summertime. I bought her propane every year, which was costly. And well, unbeknownst to me, my oldest sister's paying her cell phone bill. My youngest sister's buying her groceries. My 2 brothers are giving her money hand over fist. And so
She's set.
she's set,
Yeah.
but she's gambling it all away,
Mhm.
going to the casinos. So in this process time, uh, she had called me not once, not twice, but 3 times for this same issue. She's like, "I'm in a bind. I need some help." All right, how much is it going to cost? $5,000. Okay, Mom, we're not doing this again. Give her $5K. 6 months, 7 months later, I could always just tell by the tone of her voice 'cause she didn't like admitting she was messing up, you know. And I'm okay. How much? 12K. Like, all right, this is getting serious. Okay. Last time. 9 months roll by, maybe not even that long. She calls and pauses. I'm like, before she could say anything, I said, "How much?" And she's like, "You little SOB." And she hung up on me. Called her right back. I said, "Mom," I said, "do you realize that I used to get into fights with guys if they called me an SOB because they were dishonoring you. And then now you're calling me a little SOB. But seriously, how much is this going to cost me this time?" And it was astronomical. And I said, "Okay, for me to participate this time, you're going to have to pay this money back, and you're going to have to go to Copac and get an assessment. Let me know when you get your assessment." She got the assessment, went into treatment. I managed her money for about 9 months, was part of our plan. And she did really good. She ended up going to work at Copac as a clinical assistant,
Wow.
No way.
driving the patients around. Yeah, so she became gainfully employed again, and really loved being with the clients too and doing that. And then her health got sideways, and she passed away in 2017 at the age of 83. But
And your like your relationship with your dad and what y'all had, that bothered her as well, right?
I think so. Because even before he died, I forgot about this until bringing her up. So I get a call one day. She's like, "Well, you said your father worked the 12 steps." I said, "He did, and he's sober. To my knowledge, he's still sober." And so she goes, "Well, he never made amends to me." And I said, "Really?" I said, "Mom, are you serious?" She goes, "Well," I said, "Well, okay, let's put the shoe on the other foot. Have you ever made amends to him?" Because they would crack me up. They'd always go, "Well," my dad would go, "I don't have any animosity towards your mom." And she'd do the same thing. And then when we have family functions where both of them had to be there, they were like just killing each other with stares, you know. I'm like, how can that hate be that deep? And it was, and it was crazy. Y'all heard that last time. But anyway, and so a month before he died, and this is before I got her treated for her gambling and all that stuff. A month before he died, she called me crying, and I knew. I said, Dad called you, didn't he? I can't believe it, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, miracles never cease. I said, I hope you got your side of the street clean too while that happened. We're good. I'm like, awesome. you know, so it took a lifetime, for that to happen. I mean, not really. Dad was 59 when he passed away. He died really, really young.
Wow.
And, so Joe and I are blowing and going. We're still, we make meetings at Northeast, 4801. We kind of quit going to 4801 when it changed locations. So we were steadfast at Yana, Northeast group mainly. Man, just to think about all the women she helped. She helped a lot of girls. She helped a lot of girls. And I mean, even just this last week in a meeting, a couple of people, two different people brought her up during the meeting.
Oh, wow.
Miss Joanne said this, Miss Joanne said that, and that touches my heart. That touches my heart. She worked with a lot of girls. She didn't cut them any slack. It was like, girl would show up to Yana looking like she might be working the streets, and she'd go, you don't come up in here looking like a prostitute. Take your ass home and put some real clothes on and come back up here and act like you want to get sober. I will not put up with this. I will not put up with this. And she meant it. She meant it. She goes, you're not dressed like a godly woman. And that was the other thing in our relationship as it grew. We went to, I brought Keith Tonkel up back part one, and we went to Wells Church for a while. They were very instrumental when we lost our son too, as far as, Keith did his ceremony at the gravesite and whatnot. But, she helped me learn how to get closer to God, not in the biblical sense or the religious aspect, but just learning how to get okay with being okay with God. I always still let that kind of hang me up, and I mean, I get tickled when these young guys ask, well, what about, you were married for long term and all that. And I'm like, yeah, I was. I said, but I'll tell you straight up right now, I did everything possible to screw it up. I am not a saint. I made a lot of mistakes and made a lot of amends for a lot of stupid stuff I did. And a lot of those things that I did were still focused around anger and rage.
Mm-hmm.
Anger and rage was my friend for a long time. And I miss, it got a little bit different. We raised our boys. They both, the way with both my sons, when they turned 21, I made amends to them for the childhood that I put them through, the bad times. And
Because of your anger?
Because of my anger, yes, and acting out and things like that. And
How did that amends process go?
it was good. It was good. They allowed me to share what I needed to share, and kind of they didn't just shrug it off, but to go back to my talks with my dad. That I thought I'd never use this phrase, but in my talks with Dad in the hospital there, Dad would always say, "Son, I did the best I could. Did the best I could." And on the inside, I would internalize that, but I always thought that was a cop out because I said, "You didn't do the best." But when I'm sitting down with my oldest son when he's 21 and living over in North Carolina and looking him in the eye and going, "I want to tell you, I may have not been the perfect stepdad, but I loved you like you were my son, and I did the best I could." And I knew what my dad was talking about. It's like full circle. I said, I know we butted heads. I did things and asked, apologize, and they're both, hey, pops, I'm good. But the way I told my boys raising them always was that you are a gift from God to me. especially my second son. My stepson, yeah, he was part of the deal, but he was my boy. I got custody of him in '94, and if his dad would have given me the right, I would have given him my name. That's how much I love him. But I told my boys, both of them, I said, "You're a gift from God, and it's my job to get you ready to go out there. Out there is bad." My oldest son called me an asshole all the time, and I'd just laugh. I'm like, "I'm the best asshole you're ever going to meet in your lifetime." And I would always tell him, I said, "You just wait. You're going to get out there on your own. You're going to realize I'm not the only asshole in the world." And I said, "But it's my job to get you ready to go out there. And if I don't do that, I'm not only taking you for granted, but I'm taking God for granted." It took me a minute to realize and come to terms that I'm the spiritual leader in my family, with my family. I'm the head of the household, even though Jo was more, you know, she was very spiritual too. But it was our job to get them ready to go out there. I look at their lives today, and I can say for both of us, job well done, and I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for. My oldest son and I still have a really good relationship. I'll talk about the other one in a minute, but we're rocking along, just doing life. I left Copac in 2012. I helped my son run his landscape company. Did a lot of other odd jobs. Never looked for a job, which was always cool. They just kind of fell in my lap. Enjoying life. June of 2018. June, right before our oldest son's birthday, we found out that Jo had Lewy body dementia. We knew something was going on. Cameron had told me, we both worked at, I helped run the landscape company when we opened up the equipment store, and Jo did all the bookkeeping at the time and whatnot, and payrolls for both companies. And he called me one day and he goes, "Dad, I can't let Mom do payroll anymore." I said, "Why? What's up?" He goes, "She's making really, really simple mistakes." And I said, "Well, have you talked to her about it?" He goes, "Yeah, it's like talking to the wall." "Okay, all right." I said, "You good?" He goes, "Yeah." So we had offices upstairs, and I would always cough walking down the hall because I'd scare when I walk around the corner, because that's where her office was. So I didn't cough one day, and I just kind of tipped down the hall, and I looked around the corner, and I was looking at her, holding 2 handfuls of paper, looking at this one, looking at that one, walking back over to the copying machine, looking at her paperwork. And I could tell she was lost. I'm like, that's not right. So it took us a minute so we started with one doctor and didn't get anywhere with that, and then finally got in with Ruth Fredericks, and neurologist, one of the best known neurologists in the state of Mississippi, and had to get a lot of testing done. And my sister-in-law took her to do all that and recorded the conversation with the guy with his findings and whatnot. And so I listened to it, and that's the first time I'd heard the word Lewy body dementia. I'm leaning towards Lewy body dementia. So I called Michael, our oldest boy, and he's at North Carolina, and I explained he's a mechanical engineer by trade, so everything for him is black and white. He's an engineer to the core. And I knew I could explain it to him and that he would understand it. I knew Cameron would be, no. So we made an appointment with Dr. Irby and went in, and he goes, "Well, before I talk to y'all, tell me what you've been going through with your mom. Kirk, tell me what, back and forth. And that's when he was able to really definitively go, "I'm pretty sure it's Lewy body." So, damn, like getting T-boned. Didn't really know what it was. Went home, laptop, studied about Lewy body dementia. Not good.
What'd you learn?
That I was going to watch her disappear slowly. Lewy body dementia is Parkinson's and dementia, combo platter.
Wow.
So she may not be able to walk soon. And she may not know who I am, not know who any of us are. And so for about a month, just her and I, we went out to eat a lot because she had kind of lost awesome cook, awesome Southern cook. She had every recipe her mama ever made. Just awesome cook.
What was her best dish?
Chicken pot pie. But almost every dish she ever cooked was her.
Mm-hmm.
She was that kind of girl that would write down the date in the cookbook when the last time she made it and who was there and ate it and what she said about it. That's the way she was about her big book. That's the way she was in her Bible, too. And so we get done eating dinner one night, and we're sitting at the island in the kitchen, and she's pretty pissed off about having Lewy body dementia. She's pretty angry. She's a little bit angry at God, too. I don't know why God's giving me this, because in 98, we both found out we had Hep C. I had the antibody that I'm good. I'll always test positive for that Hep C, whatever. I've got the marker, I guess what it is. She was in maybe early cirrhosis of the liver. We did interferon back in 98 and it didn't work. And then some new meds came out in 2012 and it worked. But it was a shit show for 9 months. She had to stop working, sell her hair salon. And I gave her a shot like every 3 days to get through that, and she made it through that. We were always kind of wondered if that might have been part of what, we don't know.
Yeah.
Got Lewy body because that was God's plan. That was God's plan. But so that night she's really angry about it, and I just looked at her with all my heart could look at her. I said, baby, if God came down right now and said, Joanne, you've got Lewy body dementia because of X, Y, Z, I said, what difference is it going to make? I said, I'm not going anywhere. My commitment to you is through and through. Because in our lifetime, in our marriage, we had known some couples, one of the spouses got ill, cut fish, cut bait, and gone. Left them to die. And that always made me angry, especially when a guy did it. We knew some women that did it too, but it's just like, oh, man, and so that's what I told her that night. I said, baby, I'm putting on my full suit of armor. And I said, God has got us. And that was like late August. And then our life group, some folks in our life group at Broadmoor had never been baptized and had never accepted Christ, And so out at Deer Haven Lake, out there off of Robinson Springs Road, a good friends of ours lived out there. And I just said, look, Sam Kelly was one of the guys, and Stan Buckley was the other guy. Stan's a retired pastor. He's got But God Ministries now today that's real involved in Haiti and whatnot. But I just said, look, man, I've been sprinkled, glistened. I think I've been baptized twice again already. I said, but I have to do this to solidify my commitment to what's coming to us next. And Joe did it too. And I told Stan to hold me down underwater a little bit longer than I needed to be so everything would be gone. And that was my commitment to this thing. I didn't know what was coming. We lived in a house that had steps going up. We had 2 stories. We had stairs going up. And she had spent a day all up there one day sitting at my desk. I had a stool at my desk, and she sat there so long that her legs fell asleep, and she damn near nosedived down the stairs of the house. And my desk was a mess, and I just said, baby, what were you looking for? She goes, I want to know where all our money is. I'm like, no problem. Come here. Get the laptop. Pop, pop, pop. She's like, okay. So I said, promise me you'll never go back upstairs again. Okay. And so I ended up, built a house that didn't have any steps in it, so we didn't have to worry about it. And she got to live in that house for 9 months. So her dementia kept getting sideways. It got to the point where I had a big old, GMC 2500 with, big steps and all that. And I've always been one of them. My chivalry's still not dead, so I'm a door opener. So I opened her door, help her get into the truck, and then really had, and even more so now, I had to help her get out. But it got to the point where she wasn't waiting on me anymore, and she'd nose plant, and didn't realize that She wasn't waiting on me. She just
Mhm.
thinking I'm, And so I'm watching that go on. And I say, she always wanted to go to Paris. Being in the hair industry all her life, 35 years of the hair industry. I'm like, let's go to Paris. No, I don't want to go. Where do you want to go? I said, it can't be the grandkids. We go see the grandkids in North Carolina all the time. Where do you want to go? Nowhere, I guess. I'm like, well, you want to go to the beach? Yeah, let's go to the beach. So in that time frame, we had taken her. She voluntarily gave her car up, after a hiccup. No accident, but could have been terrible. And so I'm going, okay, the solution to her not falling out of the truck is to get a car. So we go eat at Nuke's one night, and I found this little Mercedes at the Mercedes place and all that. And she gets it in her head that I'm buying her a car. And so I'll show you the picture sometime because she is sitting in behind the wheel. The car was unlocked, unbeknownst to, and she's just grinning from ear to ear.
Yeah.
And I said, no, baby, I'm driving you in this car. I'm your chauffeur now. Okay. So we take off to the beach, and we get south of Hattiesburg, and she's like, I want to drive. I said, got your license? Damn it. So I said, honey, you can't drive. Go on down. So we go down to the beach for 4 days, and things like we get there, long day, go to eat dinner, waiting. She picks her knife up. Hello? I said, babe, nope. I think it's the wrong number. Those kind of things.
Yeah.
Walked out the boardwalk 3 different times to go walk on the beach. And we'd get about halfway there, and she'd go, I want to do it. Okay. So do that. We're leaving there, heading home. And I'm like, where you want to go next? Because I am like, we tripping. We're
Yeah.
going. We're going. And it's like, I'm not sure. I said, well, what about the mountain? She goes, let's go to the mountain. So we go to Blue Ridge, Georgia, and little Verbo cabin or whatever. So we go to the grocery store, and I'm like, you hook your finger in my belt loop, stay right here. Yes, sir. She was always a little smart ass. And so I leaned down to get something. And I mean, dude, like it made me tickle when I get tickled when I think about it. Kind of like the butler in that Adam Sandler movie, because the butler would show up and he'd disappear. So I bend over to pick something up. I look up, she is gone, and we're in Blue Ridge, Georgia.
Oh no.
Strange. I mean, and I mean, I look everywhere for her. I am that close to going. Anyone sees a lady with blue glasses, pink and blue shirt, blue pants, please stop her, and then
Yeah.
boom, I saw her. I'm like, come on. And just another one of those. We went out and had a really nice dinner, but she wouldn't let me wouldn't let me, it was to the point I had to help her bathe and do her hair. Wouldn't let me do her makeup. I probably couldn't have done it good anyway. She wouldn't let me do her hair that night, and I still got that picture. I'm like, my girl, styling and profiling, but I'm like, I can't take care of her. That was a loop that started playing in my mind, and a lot of things were happening where incontinence and things like that, and lots of cleanups and lots of getting in the shower and cleaning her up and redressing her, and her getting upset and crying. And I'm like, look, I'm good. This doesn't fade me one bit. I'm good. You shouldn't have to do this. I said, doesn't matter. I'm doing it, But I had done the home health care thing, and that didn't work out good. Very disappointed in that. But that's just what it was. Then we ended up getting a couple of girls that we knew. One she went to high school with, and another girl she knew. And then that worked out good for a while because she had to take medication all the time, 4 different times a day, and make sure she ate and everything. And then that disappeared, and it was kind of like the wheels fell off the bus. And so my youngest son called me and he said, "Hey, me and Easton, my grandson, we're coming over to see Mom." And I said, "Well, good. I've got to run an errand." And so I said, "I'm really contemplating on putting your mom in assisted living." He's like, "Whoa, whoa, Dad, pump the brakes." I'm like, "No, son, you have no idea what I'm going through right now. Y'all don't come around no more,
Yeah.
you know." And so they come over. I go look at a facility, and and that was like on a Saturday. And on Sunday, we were closed for the Christmas holidays, but one of our big clients needed some product, and we didn't say no to them. And so we're down there loading up product, and we're walking back and forth in a pine straw trailer. And I finally said, "Well, how'd your day go with your mom yesterday?" And he stopped dead in his tracks, and he looked me in the eyes. He goes, "Dad, I don't care what you have to do. You find a place to take it." I said, "Okay." And I already talked to my oldest son about it. Do whatever you think. And so I assisted living shopped all around town and wanted her close by, selfishly for me, but nobody fit the bill. And then I went to the last place I went to the Blake in Flowood, and walked in and sat down. And before I could say anything, the girl said, "Hey, tell me about your wife." Before she tried to pitch me or anything about how great their place was, she said, "Tell me about you." On the inside, I went, "This is it." And so we got her moved in. She moved in there on January the 4th of 2021.
Can I ask you a question real quick?
Yeah.
What was the first thing you said? Someone says, "Tell me about your wife."
She's my queen. It's the first thing I said. She's my queen. And I want her to be treated like a queen if I decide to use y'all. It weren't cheap,
Mm.
but that wasn't the problem.
Yeah.
But if she was going to be somewhere, by God, she was going to be taken care of. And then I also said, I sure hope y'all don't oppose cameras being in your rooms. I said, because there'll be a camera in her room because I will be watching. And I was. But anyway, that was the place. And she was on board. Took her out there. She loved it. Oh yeah, this will be great. This will be great. And the last night we were together in our home there, our little Bob. I told Dave about Bob. You've heard about my German shepherds.
Mhm.
Bob's 6 months old. He's laying on the floor on his little deal in front of the fireplace, and she's going. She's going. We've already got her apartment moved in. She's set up to go. She comes over and just curls up in my lap. Never done that before. She's 5'9", big. She's a tall girl. Comes up and cuddles up in my lap, starts patting me on the chest and goes, "I love you. And I don't want you to know you're doing the right thing." And I talked to a couple of my spirits, talked to Stan Buckley and Sam Kelly about, am I doing the right thing? And they're like, "Son, we have watched you take care of her for the last 3.5 years. You are tired. You are not taking care of yourself." You know, and I wasn't. I was not taking care of me. Making meetings, though. I was making meetings. I was talking about it in the rooms. I was talking about it in the rooms because I was uncomfortable with it all, you know, for forever. And but she curled up in my lap and said, "You're doing the right thing, and I'm proud of you for being able to do this." And I don't cry, and I cried like a baby, hysterically for almost 20 minutes. I cried so hard my contacts came out of my. And Bob sitting there, my German Shepherd, looking at me, going, "Dude, what's wrong with you?" You know, he knew something was wrong. And you know, got done crying, blew my nose in my T-shirt, and I looked at her and I said, "Okay, I'm done crying." And we got her in. I spent the first 4 days with her there at the Blake to make sure she got acclimated and slept on an air mattress. And Thursday, January the 8th, I drove out of there. It was a misty rain. I got those misty cold front rains coming in. I call those whiskey fronts. Good old whiskey front was blowing through, and I pulled out of the Blake and go down the road, and right over there is where the Outback Steakhouse is. I didn't have this thought. I never hit my mind. I looked at my watch. I said, "Man, it's 10:30. I said, "The bar just opened." I said, "A double Crown and water would be good right now." I was like, where the hell did that go? Once again, uncomfortable in my own skin, like what was going on. My brain was discombobulated. I had to run an errand to Tractor Supply, and then my ass was sitting in the corner where I always sit. 12 o'clock. I talked about almost going into. That's the last time I've thought about taking a drug to this day, since that day, and for that I'm grateful.
Do you remember anything in that meeting specifically you heard that stuck with you? Yeah.
No, it and that's pretty rare for me because I hear something every time I go to a meeting. I love the newcomers. I love I hear the things I hear out of the newcomers' mouth are the things I need to hear more than anything else. So yeah, so we rolled through the next year was the next 6 months was pretty good. I'm a big Mississippi State fan, and the baseball team did really good that year, and they went to Omaha up there, and that was on my bucket list. And I explained to her, and she was she let me be a fan, and she was a fan with me too. We went to a lot of football games, a lot of basketball games, and up there and whatnot. But I explained to her that I was going to be gone for a few days. I was going to go watch State win the College World Series, and I'll come straight here when I hit town. And so she goes, "Go have a good time." I said, "Awesome." And she was getting worse. She was getting worse. She in the part of the building that she lived in, she knew she could go outside. She knew how to get back inside because it was assisted living. It was no locked doors or anything. She would go out one door and then walk around to the front and come in the open doors where the girl was and wave at her and walk back down the hall and go to her room. I had a level of care for her out there that somebody put eyes on her every 2 hours and spent 10 to 15 minutes with her every 2 hours. That was the little extra oompa. Take care of my queen. And so I go do the deal. State wins the World Series, and I'm driving back, split the drive up. The next day, I get a call from the executive director out there, Chad Polk. He goes, "Kirk, we need to talk." And I said, all right, I think I know what this is about. He goes, "Well, you go first." I said, "She got out of the building, didn't she?" He goes, "Yeah." And it took her a minute to get back in. I said, "Okay, what's our next move?" He goes, "I really think we need to put her in the memory care unit. That's a locked unit." And I said, "Okay, I want to have a discussion with her about this. Everything I did with her, I didn't do. I got power of attorney for her health care and all her directives and all that a couple of years prior to that to just take care of life. And I made no decisions without talking to her. I wanted her to understand what I was doing. And the cool thing in all of that was that God took care of it, and she was always on the same page. She never nope. I mean, she's like, I agree. And so he's like, "I can have your apartment ready tomorrow. We can make a seamless move. I'll get staff to help y'all move. We'll set her apartment up just like it was, and she won't miss a beat." Awesome. Let me talk to her. Roll into town, get out there, and again, she always had this little habit of when she'd get nervous, she'd start patting me on my chest. She's laying in bed. I jumped in bed with her. She's patting me on my chest. I said, "What's going on?" "Oh, I'm just glad to see you." I said, "Well, I'm glad to see you too, And I said, "But something's bothering you." She goes, "Well, when you were gone to that baseball thingy?" I said, "Yeah, we won." She goes, "Really?" I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Well, I got out of the building." I said, "You did?" I just always went along with her. I never said, "No, that's not right. That's not the right thing to do with somebody that has that disease." And I'm just like, "Well, what'd you do?" And she started off she was in our old neighborhood in North Bay, seeing Mamie and Steve Douglas that lived across the street from us and their dog Max. And they sat on the front porch and had tea and went for a walk. And then she saw Kathy and the other guy's name next door and lottie. And she goes, "And when I got back, I was tired." I said, "I bet you slept good." She goes, "I did." I said, "Well," "well, there's something I need to talk to you about too." She goes, "Well, let me tell you one other thing." I said, "Okay." She goes, "I think you need to put me back there in that locked up place."
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
God's good.
He is.
God's good. I said, you sure about that? She goes, yes. I don't like that. I don't like not knowing what I'm doing. He was always active and walking and all. But anyway, got her back there in July. And yeah, continually, gradually going away. I mean, she was 5'9". Last time we went to the neurologist was November the 8th of 21. He said, we're going to take her off all her meds. They're not working. I had to physically, she couldn't understand, step up on the scales to weigh. She didn't say a word. Had to get her hair done in the salon before we left, though, to go to the doctor. And she did say, I want a milkshake from Chick-fil-A. I said, good. We're having a picnic on the bed of the truck. She never spoke again. Had to pick her up to get her on the scales. She was 5'9" and weighed 106 pounds.
Gosh.
And Justin Cole, our nurse practitioner, said, look, it's time to get hospice. Okay. Who do you recommend? He recommended me somebody. And we walked out the door and get kind of over by the ER going to the garage, and she stopped dead in her tracks and put her arms around my shoulders and looked me dead in the eyes and goes, well, my next goal is to die in your arms. And then she put her head on my shoulder and she got real still, being a little smart ass that I am. I'm like, we're not doing this right now, are we? And she kicked me and said, no, let's go to Chick-fil-A. I said, good, let's go. So go do that. Sat out on the bed of my truck and had a picnic and got her back into her room, and she was wore out from just, that short period of time of going to the doctor and all that stuff. And got her all tucked in, and she opened her eyes and she goes, I heard everything y'all talked about in there. I said, I figured you did. She goes, you go ahead and get all that stuff lined up. She didn't say hospice. She goes, get all that stuff lined up. Because at one time, prior to putting her in, she was already going, just call hospice and I'll quit. They can keep me comfortable. I'll just go ahead and go. I said, well, I got power of attorney over you right now, and I don't agree with that. But I also told her, I said, if that's what you really want to do, then I don't like that. I said, because that's something you can't call time out. And so we didn't do that. So we got hospice lined up, and so I got COVID 23rd of December. Had intended to be with her all Christmas Day. She had a bad fall and had to go to the hospital. Well, they got her there, but they wouldn't go pick her up. I'm like, well, she can ride in an ambulance. I'm like, no. Son went and picked him up, and I couldn't go out there. I could have, but I did not want it. The thought of giving somebody somebody COVID, just I couldn't live with myself, And so and that was killing me. But I was talking to her, quit using her phone probably in September, but so I could talk to her through that camera I had in the room. I had a camera that I could 360 the whole room and go up and down. We'd talk that way. Always tell her good night and tell her I love her, and we'd say prayers together sometimes. Just stuff like that. Just staying connected as much as I could. And I tried to explain to her that I couldn't be there because I had COVID, didn't register. And so New Year's Day, she stopped eating, refused food. She'd drink her booze, stayed in bed all day. I periodically checked in on her. There was this one young man that just loved her to death. He would make her get up and dance. He would take her to the hall and they'd play music and they'd dance. She'd dance with him. And so I heard him come in. I was watching sports or something. I always had the camera on, and I heard him come in. Miss Joanne, it's time to get out of bed. And he got her out of bed, got her dressed up, took her down to the dining hall, and a couple hours later, he brought her back in and laid her down. And I said, hey, how's my girl? She's like, hey, Kirk. I said, I said, Happy New Year. She's like, Happy New Year. I said, have you had a good day? I've had a great day. I've been so busy. She's been in bed all day. I said, well, I love you, darling. I'm Happy New Year. Happy 2020, 2022. Happy 2022. And the last words I ever heard her say to me was, she said, I love you, Kirk. It's the last time I heard her talk. And so she got progressive work really quick. That was January the 1st. January the 3rd, I called him and said, it's been 10 days since I tested positive for COVID. Y'all ain't going to keep me out of that facility. I don't care if y'all got to put me in a hazmat suit or whatever, but I am on my way. And so I got out there, and she's got that look in her eye. She's crossing over. Kind of got that dazed, glazed look and non-responsive. And I called my boys, called my son in North Carolina. I said, Mom's not going to be with us much longer. And he goes, well, no. Thank you for taking care of her, is what he always told me. I called Cameron. He came out. Very hard for him. He loved his mom. Real hard. And so I, saw the situation, talked to the hospice nurse, talked to the head nurse, said, I got to go back home and get my go bag. I came out here trying to do an assessment. It ain't going to be long. So ran back home, prayed real hard, got my go bag, and, got back there, and they kept her comfortable. We listened to Alan Jackson gospel music, sang to her, loved on her, talked to her, what a wonderful life. And so at 12 o'clock, she was already starting to get the gurgles. That's what they call it, getting the gurgles. And I had her in my arms where she said she wanted to be. And I could tell she was awake. I could see her eyes blinking. Holy moly. And wheeled around there and got in front of her. I was like, hey, baby. And y'all, she had the biggest grin on her face and tears running out of her eyes. And her eyes were big and bright. That gloss was gone. And I said, you're looking at Jesus right now, aren't you, baby? And she just blinked her eyes really hard. And I said, it's okay. It's okay. I am right here. I love you. I'll always love you. And she blinked her eyes really hard, and then she closed her eyes, and I got back up, had her in my arms, took her last breath. So that was at 12/10, January the 6th of 2022. Keith Ferguson, he uses his last name, so I'll use it too. Keith had been out there a lot during that 2 days. Have you done this? Have you done that? Have you done this? Have you done that? I'm like, no, I haven't done any of that. Just we'll get it. We'll take care of it. Thank you. Don't let me forget. He goes, I won't let you forget. And the cool thing about that was he was also there when we lost our son. Keith and Joanne had known each other since they were 6 years old in the first grade at Oakdale Elementary School or whatever it was. They graduated from Forest Hill together in 1977. Wow. And then they were in sobriety together. Keith sobered up about a year before we did. And so that's that connection. And Keith really helped me through that. He helped me get the service ready and all that good stuff. But did all my due diligence with all the stuff that goes on, and got the Madison Ridge group. No Edwin. Remember Edwin?
Yeah.
Edwin used to like to rattle my cage a little bit, see if he could get me upset by sitting in my chair. And so I always said, hey, if you get there before me, it's not my chair. But I appreciate y'all getting up. And anyway, but he'd always get up going, I don't like sitting back here anyway. Good old Edwin. And walk back there. And I mean, I've been awake for probably 48 hours. My hair's on fire. My wife just died. And he looks up at me. He's like, I guess you want me to get up? I said, yeah, today I really need you to get up, brother. And I hugged him. I said, thanks. I sat down. I let the meeting get going. And then I just said, hey, what happened? Shared that day that we were going to send her off in the good old AA way. And I wanted and needed everybody's support. If you knew her, I expect you to be there. Didn't know her. I expect you to be there. And so we did a celebration for life of her at Broadmoor, and probably about 250, 300 people there. All the AA folks were over here, and all our church friends and 35 years of clients and all that, and friends and all that. And I had her AA Big Book, and I had her Bible, and I said the third step prayer when I did her eulogy. And I jokingly said, hey, I talked to Sam Kelly last night, and I said, Sam, I've Googled eulogies. He goes, usually 5 to 10 minutes, but he said, you can have all the time you want. I said, thank you. And Keith had gotten up there and talked before I did, because she was like a sister to him, and I wanted him to share. And I said the third step prayer, and then I said, my name's Kirk, and I'm an alcoholic. AA blew me out of the water over here. Hey, Kirk. And I said, all right, y'all, we're going to do this again. This isn't a test, but y'all need to participate. Y'all are helping me whether you realize this or not. This will make me feel a little more comfortable. I said, but my name's Kirk, and I'm an alcoholic. Started to talk to my wife. And that big book and that Bible were her two most important books in her life. And I talked about how she used that book to walk hundreds of girls through the steps of their recovery. And then her Bible and Bible studies with other girls in recovery and not in recovery. He was awesome. He was awesome. And so sent her off in the way I wanted to send her off. Job well done is what I figured. We had a real, real good friend who sang at First Baptist Church, and Randy Robinson. He sang "Oh Wooden Cross," and her favorite song was "Amazing Grace." And so life was different. Life was different. I had been alone, for what felt like an eternity, but, for a year by myself doing life and with her as much as I could be. So it's already different. It's already different. I tried to go back to church. Some things happened that day of her service where some very inappropriate comments, I won't share them on the podcast, but I'll share them with you privately if you'd like me to. But some things were said that just really unnerved me. They were like, oh, my Lord, I cannot believe you're saying that to me right after I just said goodbye to my wife. And I'm like, this is not the place for me. I attempted to go back to my life group a couple of times, and that was our thing. That was where we went to church together. That's where we learned about God together, spirit, through the Bible and hearing about things. And we were unabashed about our recovery. We taught our story, and our life group was humongous, about 150 people, and we were no holds barred about who we were. I wasn't a credit card Christian and a suit up on a Sunday kind of guy. I'm a recovering drug addict, and I love the Lord. I'm not ashamed of that. I'll talk to you more about my recovery than I will about. I'll help you save your ass, and you can worry about saving your face later. And that's the way it was explained to me. Can't save your ass and your face at the same time. Let's work on saving your ass right now. We'll work on the soul later. And I kind of feel real comfortable with that today. Teresa came into my life about 6 months after Joanne passed away. And she'd been sober for 7 months. So I got a couple of look a little stink eyes about the 13th step. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And I talked to her, so here's a funny story. I don't even talk to her in the room. We start talking on Facebook Messenger. So June 29th, Kenny Chesney's in town. I'm like, hey, would you like to go to a concert? Well, I've never been asked out on a date on Facebook Messenger. And I said, well, I don't have your damn phone number, so give me your number. So she shoots me her number, and I called her. I said, hey, girl. So, yeah, let's go. And so this is like 2 weeks prior, and we're chit-chatting, still Facebook, not really talking or anything. Gonna go out to a concert. So I'll roll over to her place, and got a big old 3,500 Denali now, a big old truck, eats up her whole driveway, just a big old beast of a truck. And so I open the door, she gets in the truck, I get in the truck, and I look over at her. I said, look, I just got to be totally honest with you. I said, you're the first woman that's ridden shotgun in a vehicle with me since my wife of 35, almost 35 years of our relationship. And without missing a beat, she's like, well, we're just going to a concert. I said, yes, we are. I said, but I started to call you last night and say, hey, something's come up and I'm not going to be able to make it. And that's how nervous I was about about doing the deal. I said, but that wouldn't have been real good on my part. She goes, no, it wouldn't. And I was uncomfortable the whole night long. And as time went on, I just kind of told her, I said, hey, I'm kind of really like what we got going on here. I said, but I do not want to do anything to impede your sobriety. I said, if you tell me your sponsor tells you you need to wait a year or you're not ready to get in a relationship, I'll take a time out and I'll wait. I ain't going nowhere. I like what I see. I like what I hear. I'm good. And it's like, no, I'm good. And I've watched that woman have and become the same thing Joanne was, helping women. She is the first person that a newcomer girl talks to 9 times out of 10 when they walk in that door at Madison Ridgeland.
Mm-hmm.
She makes sure she's got phone numbers. She knows that every last Wednesday of the month, the girls go eat at Trace Grill. Every second Saturday of the month, we all go to eat at Trace Grill together. She is Johnny on the spot. And I like that quality. I like that quality. As far as that has hampered my relationship with my son, my youngest son. He's not okay with it, and that's something we're processing. I have given that to God, and it's in God's hands. Saw one of his good buddies last night, and he assured me that he will come around. I said, well, it's in God's hands, and we're going to leave it at that, and that's kind of where I'll leave that at. I truly believe in keeping my side of the street as clean as possible, 24/7, 365. And I didn't learn that on my own. I learned that sitting in that room 2 miles down the road, sharing my experience, strength, and hope, and not ever being afraid to talk about what's going on. I get tickled in meetings. I say this all the time. Before the meeting starts, it sounds like we're at a party. Just everybody's laughing, giggling, cutting up. Meeting starts, get a topic, and everybody sits there sitting on their hands, and nobody wants to share because they're afraid they might sound a little bit crazy or a little bit stupid or not make any sense. And I'm like, that's how you learn how to get sober. That's how you learn how to share. That's how you learn how to make mistakes. And I love Mr. Will, who's, working on 53 years. And he said, you guys know, it ain't real hard to get long-term sobriety. You make a lot of mistakes. You make thousands of mistakes. You don't drink and you don't die. And that's how you get long-term sobriety. And that's how I've gotten mine. I still make a lot of mistakes. And I let go of that anger and rage in 22. Let's leave it at that. I haven't. September the 28th of 2022 was the last time I lost my marbles and was able to make amends for it and said that doesn't work. So my thing is, for me in my recovery and being an active member of the Madison Ridgeland group, is to be of maximum service to my fellow brothers that walk in that want to get sober. And even the guys that have been sober for a while want to stay sober, having hiccups in life. Because there's nothing you can tell me that I probably haven't done or probably haven't heard. And I heard a lot of that when I worked in the treatment field. And that wasn't my recovery. That was a job back then. I went to lots of meetings when I worked in the treatment field too. And so, that was one of Joanne's wishes that I heard all the time was, don't you ever stop going to AA. Don't you ever stop reaching out to the newcomer, and you make sure that you find you another woman that makes you as happy as I've been able to make you. And I said, that's a large task,
Mm.
but you know what? I think I did. No, I don't think I did. I know I did.
Yeah,
I'm a blessed man.
you really are.
You know, totally blessed by, she used to say it all the time. If I made a list out on July the 6th of 1986 of what I expected to get out of getting sober, I would have sold myself really, really short.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really short. And just by chance, I've been able to talk almost another hour and a half. but I feel like that kind of encapsulates everything. David asked me before we got started, what do you do for fun? I'm like, work out a lot, walk a lot, work in the yard. And I go to a lot of meetings still, and it's not about, I get tickled, do I have to go to a meeting? Yeah, you have to go to a meeting. Do you want to go to a meeting? Yeah, I really want to go to a meeting, because you never know. You never know. You just never know. I never know. Like another old coot in there says, I got to be ready for that moment. Those were those moments I talked about where I almost got loaded in. I've got to be ready for that moment.
Can you, I know, I don't know if y'all have somewhere to go, but just real quick with that, can you explain that to someone who maybe doesn't go to a lot of meetings or who's new in recovery, what you mean by like, you go to meetings, she'll be ready for that moment? Do you see it as like you've got this like spiritual reserve almost, or like how do you see it?
Well, what I tell my guys when they ask me to sponsor them, I get asked a lot. I never say no, but I've always got 3 questions. You willing to do what I did to get sober? It's always, yeah.
Mm.
All right. You willing to make 90 meetings in 90 days? Well, does going to aftercare count as a meeting? No. Meetings. Meeting is a 12-step meeting. 90 meetings in 90 days. I always get balked at that. And then the third thing is, can you be brutally honest with me? Because I will never lie to you. I will never lie to you. I do not know everything. If you ask me a question and I cannot answer it, I'm not going to blow smoke up your butt and tell you, oh yeah, we're going to call somebody else and say, hey, I got this situation going on with this fella and I don't know what to tell him. I have to ask for help too. And so my biggest thing for my guys in early recovery is, hey, no matter what, you do not get loaded. Stack some time. Do 90 meetings in 90 days if you can. I implore you to do that. And never lie to me. Tell me, be brutally honest with me. And we'll go from there. I get them to read page 63 every day. Read that 3rd step prayer. Just like the guy told me, you read it till you can say it, and say it till you mean it. Read page 86 through 88 every day, and then you'll learn how to incorporate that into your daily program of recovery. It won't be that you have to read it every day. It becomes part of your day. And then read now page 417 of the big book on acceptance. Acceptance. It's not, you don't have to like it, but by God, you're better off if you accept it. It ain't going to be peaches and cream all the time. And so in that process, I got a guy, we're going to be getting his 4th step on Wednesday. I'm like, I always talk to him, how you doing with God? How are you doing with God? And we process through that. And I let them talk to me and let them tell me about their conceptions and their misconceptions and their fears and their worries. And, and 9 times out of 10, I've been there. I know exactly what they're saying to me, and I tell them it's okay. And one of the coolest things that Charlie did with me, the man that took me through the steps, he would tell me I was a good man. You're a good man. You may not believe it, but you're a good man. You're a good man. If nobody's told you that today, you're a good man. Bank on that. Learn how to believe that.
Man, do we need to hear that?
Yeah. And I mean, you've known me for a while. We've been in rooms together. I mean, I'm not a cheerleader, and I'm not a, I get told all the time, "Oh, you ran that person out of the room." I'm like, "No, there isn't. Took him out of the room." I'm just like, I just told the truth, and the truth was told to me, and that's the thing. That's the most important thing. I mean, like these guys, they start out, they do 1 or 2 meetings, and I'm like, "Where you at? Where you been?" "Well, I got doing this, got doing that." I'm gonna say, "Well, tell you a little secret, brother. Lone wolves don't stay sober. And you turn it into a lone wolf." I said, the further you get away from the pack, I'll see you around. And I've seen it happen thousands of times. I mean, we had a girl got her 10-year chip yesterday. And I got tickled because the Old Timers Roundup started in 1986, and I'd been sober for a couple of months and got my little name tag. And I'm like, "What do you got to do to be an old timer?" And the old guy looked at me and he goes, "You ain't nowhere near it, boy. You got to have 10 years. I was like, 10 years? Oh my God. So, you know, but I mean, it literally blows me away. I read the daily reflection every day out of the Everything AA app. And like today I opened it up, and today I've got 14,504 days.
Wow.
And I'm like, damn it, boy. How blessed am I? Because it ain't about luck.
Mm-mm.
I am blessed. I wouldn't trade this for nothing. Nothing. And my goal is to go out like Joe went out, sober and job well done, and that's why I care about the newcomer. I'm not that, hey, pat you on the butt, it's going to be okay. No, it might be rough for a little while.
Yeah.
It might be rough, might be really rough. So, but I want to learn. I want to give them some compassion, though. Little bit of empathy. But I want to
Just a
give him.
dash.
I want to give him some compassion. I know I need to hush, but I got one guy that would always call me, "Well, I fell off the wagon again." I'm like, "Dude, I never drank on a wagon." I said, "If you're gonna stop getting loaded, maybe you need to get on solid damn ground and quit getting on the damn wagon, because you're gonna keep falling off that wagon." I'm like, I don't know what else to say to you, bud, but you got to get off that daggum wagon. It ain't working. And then guys that call me and go, "Well, I'm about 75% this." I'm like, how do you quantify that? Where's your measuring tool on this percentage shit you keep giving me, man? You're too smart for your own good, But man, mm.
Well, I feel blessed that we got to have you back for a part 2.
Well, thank you.
It's so good.
Well, thank
I
you.
wouldn't have let anyone else talk this long.
Well.
Wake up, Daniel.
Where am I? What day is it?
No, it's so good. I would love to have you back one time to maybe talk about a specific step or something like that. I love your big book knowledge and all you have to share. So,
well, I will stay true to you. I've got a big book that's marked up pretty good. I'm not a real big book thumper. I went through 2 of Tom Kay's big book studies, and I know a little bit.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit. Well, look, I think it'll be a good old time, and I'm grateful you were able to come today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me again.
Thanks.
Another day in paradise.
Yeah, it is.
Another
It's a
day in
good life.
paradise.
All right. Well, we thank y'all so much for joining us, and we will see you next week.